now. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Cast Polymer Radio. I'm Jonathan Taylor. Today, we're going to be talking again about AI and ChatGPT. You know, we've mentioned this on a previous episode, kind of gave everyone, a lot of our listeners, an overview. Today, I've got an exciting guest who's going to be joining me today and just talking about how their company is utilizing AI and ChatGPT for email marketing. He's going to share some takeaways, some of the pluses, maybe some of the minuses, and I'm excited to have him on. I have AJ Goel. He is the founder of GMass, a company that's been around. AJ has been a developer of software for the past 20 years. GMass offers some popular features that help to sync it with your Gmail for email marketing. He's going to be talking a little bit about what they do there, and exciting to have him on the show today to just share with all of our small business owners how you can utilize this new platform. It is incredible. Just testing it out myself in terms of creating headlines, sales letters for your company. You can literally turn this thing into your own marketing assistant, and it's really all about how you prompt it and how you create those prompts. And with that said, I'm happy to have AJ on the show. AJ, thanks for spending some time with me today.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I've reading some of your blog, your recent blog on your own, how you all tested ChatGPT. Fascinating stuff. Before we get into it, if you would share a little bit about GMass, your company, maybe a little bit about yourself. You've been kind of on the development side of things for the last 20 years in terms of software. Maybe just start with your background and we'll get into GMass.
Sure. When I went to college, I was planning on becoming a doctor, but it so happened that it was the late 90s when the internet started taking off and everyone was trying to figure out how to get a website set up, and learning HTML was all the rage back then. And that excitement took over. So I dropped out of my medical program to pursue a career in software. And I've been developing email automation software for about 20 years. And I've worked on a number of different platforms. And GMass, which is my current product, is what I've been doing for the last 7 years.
Now, tell us a little bit about. Now, I've been on your website. Tell us a little bit about some of the features that you offer with GMass, because this is really fascinating. I have just recently learned about this, and everything I've read, it really piques my interest in how I can incorporate, this service into my own email marketing.
Sure. So GMass is a low volume email outreach tool that works right inside your Gmail account.
Yep.
So you log into your Gmail account just as you normally would. GMass adds a few buttons to the screen, and those buttons allow you to send a email campaign, such as a cold email campaign or an outreach campaign, or an email to, perhaps you have a list of paid subscribers that are paying for your content. Sure. So it's a way to turn your Gmail account into an email outreach platform.
That's fantastic. And you can segment these. I'm sure you can segment your groups and your list to certain campaigns, I guess.
Yeah, you can segment and filter your data however you like. So if you have columns in your spreadsheet that delineate interest levels of your list, or interest groups, or purchase history, you can filter on that. And then once you send a campaign, you can segment the data from your prior campaigns and only send an email to the people that opened the last email or clicked the last email, or what have you.
Okay. Fantastic. And is this is a monthly service that you offer, or is it?
Yeah, GMass is a SaaS platform, software as a service platform. So it's a monthly subscription. The prices range from around $10 a month to about $30 a month.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we'll be sure to feature that, as we've got our ticker at the bottom. People can find it gmass.co, not .com. So let's get into the fun stuff of talking about ChatGPT, because we mentioned this a couple of episodes back as more or less an introduction. I'm excited to have you on because I like to get someone who has really used this within their company and can provide some feedback. So we did an intro, a few episodes back, and it was fascinating just looking at just just some of the capabilities and just how this platform learns through each prompt and how you can get more specific. And it just blows your mind. But you had an interesting blog post and just talking about how you all utilize this for some cold email campaigns. If you could just share some of the results and what were
Sure.
your biggest takeaways from that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the biggest pain points of people in the cold email sending world. So these are people that are using email outreach to try and close deals. So they're trying to
Sure.
sell. And so they come up with a warm list of prospects and then send an email or a sequence of emails out, trying to get people to engage or show interest by replying, which then leads to booking a meeting, which then hopefully leads to closing a sale. One of the biggest pain points for that whole community is writing good copy.
Sure.
And what ChatGPT is essentially is it's a system that writes for you based on your prompts.
Right.
And so we've done a bunch of testing ourselves just to see how good of a job ChatGPT can do in writing copy for both that initial email and your sequence of follow-ups that continue until the person replies.
Sure.
And we've observed a number of things through all of our internal testing. And I was actually wanting to do some final testing this morning to give you some latest insights, but the tool has been down all morning because of volume and scale. So
Sure.
I can't give you that. But what we found is that it's good to get ideas rolling. So you can give ChatGPT a prompt such as write a cold email offering to demo my new software to potential clients.
Sure.
And initially what I found is it wrote a few paragraphs kind of summarizing benefits of the company and benefits of the software and talking about how good of a demo it would be if they engaged.
Right.
That initial take probably wouldn't make for a good cold email. It was too long.
Sure.
It was wordy. It didn't have like a good hook right away. It kind of started off as too formal of a business letter. But then the nice thing about ChatGPT is you can refine it and say something like, make this shorter, or make this shorter and add in a joke.
Yep.
And so as you refine it, what we found is that it does a pretty good job, and it does a pretty good job of giving you enough ideas as a springboard to then modify so that you're cutting down the time that you need to spend on writing your copy.
Right.
So I have not seen anything from ChatGPT where I would take the final copy that it generated and use that in my email campaign, just because it's not quite good enough for that yet, but it's good enough to generate ideas. Sure. It's good enough to get brainstorming going and to save time.
Now, I'm curious. I want to stop you there. Are you, and I'm just curious too, how much in terms of and I understand, I completely agree with your take that can't be the final copy, but it gets you started. It's a great way to get you started, and you're going to try to go in there and obviously edit and clean it up a little bit. Do you ask it from, I know you're very specific on that. Do you give it any prompts in terms of the type of tone that you're using in your email, and should it be a conversational tone where it doesn't sound, because I've tested a few times and I've noticed some of the copies like, it doesn't feel like a conversation, right? It feels like, it's just, really one-dimensional type.
Right. So what I found is
dry.
By default, if you don't specify the tone that you're looking for in your prompt, I found that it tends to take a formal business-like tone, because it is writing that email as like a business letter would have been written in the 80s.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But if you input prompts for tonality, it does a pretty good job at matching that.
Okay.
So you can say, write a funny email or write a serious email or write a sarcastic email. And it actually does a pretty good job at that. But the content still isn't quite on point where the reader would read. So I feel like I'm a pretty good, I can gauge whether something was written by a person or not.
Right.
But I've also seen millions of emails at this point. So when there's like a joke that doesn't quite hit or like feels a little awkward,
yeah,
I feel like it was probably either written by a non-native English writer or some kind of an AI system.
Yeah.
And even before ChatGPT, there were actually there are software services called first line writers that will write you the first line of your cold email when you're pitching to a list.
Sure. Yeah.
And we've done a bunch of research on those as well. And those really never hit home. ChatGPT is a significant leap forward in getting there. I don't think AI will be really close to being able to generate something you can actually just copy and paste use until ChatGPT 4, which is supposed to be coming out sometime this year.
Right.
And if you looked at the data and the comparisons that are all over Twitter, the number of data points that ChatGPT 4 will supposedly look at is some order of magnitude greater than ChatGPT 3.
Wow.
ChatGPT 3 for writing email copy feels like it's neat, it's novelty, it's a novelty, it's a cool, fun toy, but not quite ready for production use.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people that write a lot often stumble with, say, writer's block.
Yes.
And so I think that's where it can really help. And, we've been talking about writing like email copy, but the other huge element of hooking someone in with your email is your subject line.
Right.
And one thing that ChatGPT actually does pretty well is you can say, give me 20 subject lines to pitch someone in this cold email sequence. And it will give you like 20 original subject lines. And if you don't like any of them, you at least have 20 ideas that you can modify.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I want to bring up it's funny you mentioned that because I want to bring up, I'm going to share the screen. And, just to give our audience, if you're watching visually, on the video, you can see, this is obviously from your blog, and we're going to be posting a link over at gmas.co, the article that you wrote. But as an example, you just mentioned giving subject line ideas. One of the prompts that you added, please write 10 possible subject lines for this email.
Right.
And I don't know what the topic.
And that's based on a prompt from before.
Okay, from the prompt from before, which I don't know I don't remember. I need to go up a little further to see the original prompt.
The original prompt was, can you write a cold email to promote my lead generation agency?
Okay. All right.
Specific to real estate agents.
Okay. So look at this. I mean, it gives you 10, and that's what you asked for. You asked for 10. It gives you 10, which I thought, these are actually pretty good. I mean, increase your client base with our lead generation services. I mean, that's okay. Grow your real estate business with our expert help. Take advantage of the hot housing market with our lead gen services. Don't miss out. These are actually pretty good. This is a good starting point for you.
They're okay. Yeah, they're a decent starting point. I mean, someone that gets a lot of email, these subject lines probably aren't going to reel them in.
Sure. Yeah.
They sound pretty marketing-y. They sound a little stale.
Yeah. But you went further from that point, right? I noticed in this other screen, the screen right here, you say, you asked it to write shorter headlines. Yes. Then you asked it to add the client's name or their company name. And then there's one example where you asked it to add some humor in, which, it actually incorporated a little bit of that.
Yes. So. It can make a decent joke. And the fact that you can input tone is important.
Right.
In fact, if there's one thing that I've been impressed by its ability to do the most, it's the fact that it's iterative, so that it will take your existing conversation and you can ask it to do something with what it's already told you.
Mhm.
So you can keep refining it until you hammer down to what you want.
Right.
And that's something that hasn't really been available before with copywriting assistant tools, software based tools to help you write copy.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, for example, like one of the sort of jokes that it comes up with here that you see that we talk about in the article is the subject line becomes "Tired of chasing leads? We'll
Yeah.
catch them for you."
Right.
You know, is it a
Yep.
joke? Yeah, sort of. It's a little silly. It has a more more levity in the tone, I guess.
Sure. Sure. No, this is great. I mean, as you mentioned before, if you're struggling with, like, so many people when they're sitting in front of a blank screen, or a blank email, and you're trying to write something, the whole purpose of this is to get you started, right? It's to give you ideas to get started. If you're looking for headlines, this kind of gets the juices flowing, and kind of gets you into that pattern of okay, I can work with this, but I just need to tweak it a little bit.
Yep. Um, and just one other. Oh, you're scrolling to it right now.
Yeah.
You know, A/B testing in the email marketing community is huge
Right.
because as a email copywriter, when I'm writing, I'm kind of writing based on my own biases and my own experiences, and I'm writing the way I think I would want to receive an email.
Sure.
But that doesn't take into account like real data. And so
Mhm.
what A/B testing is, you vary your subject line, you vary your content, you send to a portion of your list, you
Right.
see which content, which subject line performed the best, who replied the most, which had the best open rate, and then you send the bulk of your list that version because now it's based on data. And
Mhm.
so because you can get ChatGPT to give you 10 variations of a subject line or 3 variations of your copy, you can take those and input that into your A/B tests and just see which performs well. And you don't have to go through the mental process of generating those ideas and those variations yourself.
Sure. So with GMASs, with this platform, you're able to run, an A and a B at the
Yeah.
same time.
Or a C and a D as well at the same
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
exactly. And really see I mean, I obviously see the results of I guess, the open rate, um, you know, compare between those, 2, 3, or 4, which one gets the best open.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
That's
And
fantastic.
it's the best way to conduct an email campaign, especially as your list is growing.
Sure.
If you're pitching to a list of 100, A/B testing probably isn't going to help you that much because your data set isn't statistically significant because you don't
Mhm.
have enough data to be able to make a proper decision. But if you're sending to a list in the tens of thousands, that's where the data can really make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. Here's an example of a variation, that you created.
Yeah.
Which I would assume the second one probably did, hi there, as opposed to hi there, a little more specific. You got hi there rock star, or real estate rock star. So
Right.
probably
But
gets a little more attention.
an email specific is always better than general. But there are some psychological tricks that can come into play too. Like, people have tested intentionally putting a spelling mistake in the first line or in the subject line because a spelling mistake makes it seem like a human actually wrote it because
Right.
software AI wouldn't make a mistake like that.
Right.
And people have actually found that sometimes an intentional spelling mistake gets a higher response rate or a higher open rate than a perfectly polished email.
Right. Absolutely. No, this is great. I mean, I'm just curious overall, can you kind of summarize, what your experience in incorporating that with GMAS, the campaigns? I mean, overall, what were the results?
If I were to summarize it, I would say
Yeah.
that ChatGPT is great at generating ideas
Mhm.
that can then be polished by a really good cold email copywriter
Mhm.
to be sent. And the biggest benefit for your cold email sales team is cutting down on their time.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Have you tried it with a like a call to action, trying to see if it'll give you a call to action at the end? And then, I mean, what was your any response there?
Um, well, generally, the call to action with any cold email campaign is to get the person to reply
Yeah,
or to
right.
click on a Calendly link to book a meeting. Those are the
Sure.
two most popular call to actions.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know that we've actually specified that in the prompt,
Okay.
but usually by putting the phrase cold email in the prompt, like write me a cold email, the AI is smart enough to know to include something about, please get back to me or please reply to this email.
Right.
So that call to action is usually included without it having to be mentioned in the prompt.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious on the prompts. I think our tendency sometimes, and maybe this is just my opinion, that, um, you know, we're so used to writing or typing in Google search engine, using the Google search engines. And so sometimes we don't get super specific. Whereas interesting enough on the Chat GPT, the more information you provided, the better. And I found, I mean, from my own experience, I found just, the more information I put in and writing, instead of just what I would typically normally do if I go to a Google search, if I'm looking for something or inquiring, and maybe that just, you know, that plays a part of that, just so used to just being short, with your prompts, with your Google prompts or your search engine prompts, that you go over to this platform and you do the same, but it's just the opposite. You want to provide the more information, the better. I think is that you can give it, and the more specific that you can direct it, the better.
Yeah, you're right, and I think part of that is that you probably are aware that ChatGPT is not connected to the internet.
Right,
So
right.
it has processed text that has been available through some point in time,
Sure.
but it can't give you any real-time information like that's current as of today or yesterday.
Hmm.
And uh, so whereas in Google, I can say, what's the weather in Chicago right now? It'll tell me. ChatGPT cannot tell me.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so that probably plays into the need for lengthier prompts because um, it requires you to get more specific because it doesn't have access to real-time information.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, will version 4 be more, I guess, real time?
I can only speculate based on
Sure.
what I've seen on Twitter. I wish I worked for OpenAI and I could give you some insider secrets.
I wish I were an investor, or I wish I were
Yeah,
part of that. I mean, I saw the valuation,
yeah, yeah,
29 billion
yeah,
for
yeah,
something that doesn't even
yeah.
make any money right now. It's pretty crazy.
Right before I got on the podcast with you, Jonathan, I was on Twitter and I saw a contrarian view of ChatGPT from some guy who has a substantial following, and he said that he predicts that in 1 year, ChatGPT will have gone the way of Clubhouse.
Wow. Wow.
And he went on to further explain that
Wow.
it's cool and it's interesting and people are jumping all over it, but right now it doesn't have any real world value.
Yeah, and I think that that's where people are trying to figure out that the monetization. How are you going to monetize, a platform like this? Is as cool as it is. What is the end game in terms of, you know, um, being able to monetize this, and are people going to be willing to pay, after you've offered the open source version? I don't know. It'll be interesting to find out. That's a possibility. It could be.
The next year will be interesting regardless.
Yeah. Well, how can our listeners learn more, AJ, about GMass? I mean, this is a great platform that you can incorporate into your Gmail account. How can our listeners get started and learn more about your company?
They can go to the website, gmass.co.
Mhm.
They can go to my Twitter feed, which is twitter.com/part-time snob. And you can also email me. My first name, AJAY, at gmass.co.
Fantastic. We'll be sure to post the links on our show page this week. AJ, it's been fascinating. We'll also post the blog post that you guys have. It's a great great read, and I encourage everybody to play around with it. Just to see over at I believe it's open. What is it? Open AI. I forgot the name. I'd have to.
I think it's chat.openai.org.
That's right. That's it. Yeah.
.com.
Play around with it, and play around with it with GMAS too. We'll encourage our listeners to check that out. AJ, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for spending some time with me this 30-minute session, and hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, Jonathan.
All right. Take care. All right. That's great, man. Thank you so much.